Well, happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of the Pit Stop Pals. Nielson and Gage with you once again, and we are recapping the Monaco Grand Prix. A little bit later than we expected, Gager, but from a content and conversation perspective, certainly delivered, did it not?
I think so. It was kind of that lead up. Oh, what's going to happen here? The rain was coming. It wasn't a lot. Then it just started pouring, and the safety car start, a rolling start, or whatever was going to happen, they didn't know. And should they have started? I kind of wish they actually would have started the race a little bit earlier and then made those decisions later on. But it was nice to just get set up. You know, I got some extra time. I can make sure everything, the coffee's warm and whatever little munchies I had ready to go, and it was perfect.
Boy, it's funny because I had to do a Zoom call with Mike O'Shea, the head coach of the Bombers, and we're getting a text yesterday, and our producer and everybody was just like, hey guys, Osh can only do it at 8 o'clock Winnipeg time. Can you guys do it at 7 a.m.? And I was just like, yes, I can, because I'll be up getting ready for the Formula One race. But it worked out perfect for me. Like, I got up, I did the Zoom about 7:30, and then I was like, I had it with PVR, so I was like, okay, I got to get over there. And then I click on, and I'm like, oh, it's delayed. I haven't missed a thing. So I was very happy that it was delayed. Now, I mean, let's just start right there, because I saw a little bit pop up on Twitter, and then I dove right into it on Twitter on the F1 account. The replies about the delay, I mean, people were losing their mind. They're like, they should be racing in this. It's unacceptable. It's just water. I can drive in water. They can drive in water. I saw a lot of Massey would have them racing right now. Where's that guy when you need him? So what did you think of the decision to push it back as long as they did? Because I think the hardcore F1 community, who's been around it for years, is thinking they should have been racing. I was kind of just being like, it's a safety measure. I mean, I kind of get it. But where'd you come out on that?
Because of the track, I think that had a lot to do with it. That track is so tight, right? Like, it's
at the best of times, in perfect conditions.
Yeah, in perfect conditions, it's a bear to drive on, and how close these guys get to the wall. I was okay with it. Like, it's so much fun to see the strategy change with rain though, and what tires that they had to put on. Like, they had to go out on full wet tires at that point. Like, they couldn't use the intermediates with the start. So I didn't know about that rule change, but no, I think it was okay. I think the drivers were okay with it. And let's face it, these are new cars too, right? And so they haven't driven in a lot of rain so far. So to get a lot of data that they had from today, racing in the rain and using the intermediate and wet tires will just make it a little better if it happens again later on in the season.
I know a lot of people will complain, and I've only watched Monaco a couple of times now since I really started caring about it. I did think this morning though, as I was sitting there drinking some tea with my boys, I was like, man, what else was I doing on Sunday mornings before I got into this? Like, the Sunday mornings were a complete waste of time. So I was really enjoying it. But everybody always talks about, Monaco is such a boring race. I thought the rain and the pit stops early, trying to fight with the tires and the water and the track, I thought that really added to it. I was kind of hoping that would drag on a little bit more, but then eventually it dried out. But I mean, the way that this race finished was essentially everything that happened in the first 20 or so laps, right? Like, that's basically what it came down to.
I mean, in just watching this race for the first time, Dusty, I think you could kind of tell how much emphasis was put on qualifying, because how many guys that started at pole usually won the race, right? So there was so much, like, I felt like there was some extra juice put in qualifying just to get those positions. Like, you saw Max's face after qualifying. He was choked, right? So, I mean, I liked the race with all the things that happened, but just for overtaking purposes and making it a real race and not just essentially waiting for someone to make a mistake. I think that's the only chance that you really have to move ahead of certain cars, is just to hope for something like that, right? So I liked it. It was, I mean, having the front four for the last, I wish there was more time, man.
I know.
That's the only thing that I think Ferrari, they needed probably another 10 minutes or so for the degradation of those medium tires.
Right. That's kind of what it came down to on that final stretch. Is you're right. If they go another 7 laps, Gager, those hards hold up a little bit better. And, both Leclerc and Sainz are probably in business at that point.
But man, this is another thing where Red Bull's playing chess and
Yeah.
everyone else is playing checkers, man. They made the right call. Okay, so we only have this, like the race can only last 3 hours, right? So, and you have to have the 2 hours of racing in there. And so they're
doing the math on it and saying, hey, this is all we're going to get.
You know what? Let's get out on these mediums. We'll heat them up quick. They'll get right into the pocket, and they should, by the time this thing ends, we should be okay and be able to at least, as they say, get the elbows out to defend.
You know what was kind of weird though is that they didn't really gain anything from the mediums. You know, like it lasted long enough, but the hards on Ferrari stuck with them for that whole stretch, right? I thought maybe you'd see Checo kind of pull away a little bit, but Sainz didn't let him go.
Yeah, well, it was, I forget which race it was, Dusty, but they did do the hards and the mediums, and there wasn't a huge difference. I was kind of like, Ferrari, what are you doing? You see these guys pulling out the mediums, and you're sitting there on, what was it, 10-lap-year-old hard tires. Yeah. So that's I was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna lose, but maybe it made sense. It kind of all evened out in the end, but again, I think just Red Bull did a better job of making decisions. Their strategy worked better. Massive mistake by Ferrari too.
Well, that's where I wanted to go next. Charles Leclerc got screwed here, did he not? Like, it looked like he was gonna have a cruise. I mean, he was rolling along nicely, and usually Leclerc plays are pretty. He went full Verstappen there, and rightfully so. I mean, his team essentially cost him Monaco, in my opinion. Is that too much of an overstatement, do you think?
No, gosh, of course they did. And the fact that it wasn't even, they knew they made the mistake. Like, don't say box. No, stay out when you know exactly where he is. And you could hear the frustration. What am I going to do? Like, you can't do that. And it did cost him the race. And I mean, I was upset for Charles, because it's always cool to see the guy win his hometown race, right? Like half the people are there to see him. They talk about he grew up on those streets. I remember watching took the bus to school. Yeah, but you saw him drive around with Carlos in a Ferrari, a real nice one. Yeah, and Carlos was going, "How do you know how to get around here?" Like,
that was last year, wasn't it? Was that last year, that video? Yeah, I remember watching that too.
Drive to Survive or whatever. So that was really cool. It would have been nice to see him. At least he finished, because he hasn't finished that race before.
Yeah, I guess check that box. But he'd done everything perfectly so far. Right? Like, he had the pole, he got through all of that, he avoided the dust up, which I like your theory in qualifying. You text me last night. I don't know how I didn't think of that myself. I'm sitting there last night. I got a text from Gager, and it says, do you think Checo crashed on purpose just because he knew he was ahead of Verstappen? And part of me is like, yeah, he might have. Like, he could have done that, and they couldn't do anything about it, right? Like,
well,
and that's the one spot where you see that happen a little bit, right? Like,
you look at it, and it's like, man, he crashes there. He's third. He knows everything. Max is fourth. Two Ferraris are ahead of him, and he's like, you know what, guys, screw you for letting Max go when I could have won that last week. And I couldn't have been. He might be one of my number one driver right now, Checo. Man, he was. I was sad for Charles to lose. But I think what made up for it was Checo winning that race and seeing the look on his face. I mean, all these guys, this is one of the most special races, because it's the one everyone thinks about when you say Formula One, even for the non-fans out there, is this race, right? So to win this one, I think it's a massive deal. And to see, you can see on the podium, he's in tears, crying, right? You can't believe it. So became the most successful Mexican driver of all time with that victory. Awesome. Just awesome.
He had to earn it too. I mean, the final four cars for the last 7-8 minutes of that race, Gage, they were 2 seconds apart, all four of them. So Sainz just didn't time things very well, I think. I think he might have had the car to make a little bit of a better push than he did. But, I mean, I think you got to give Checo some props for defending the way he did.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I think, well, they said, oh, Max is playing the long game here, but Max didn't really have a great weekend, right? Like, you normally see, and I know he wasn't able to do that last qualifying lap, but he was off the pace from these other three guys, like, not by tons by any means, but yeah, he just seemed like a little bit of a step behind. But looking at the point totals now, Dusty, it's tightening up. It's really tightening up. And I mean, Mercedes is still there. So I know it sucks we don't have another race next weekend, but another street track in Azerbaijan, I think, but along big straightaways. And I think we might, fingers crossed, that we might see Mercedes take another step here, because their straight line speed and what Russell was doing in the car, we might have someone else in the mix.
Well, and we'll get to the current driver standings maybe a little bit later in the episode, but let's just look at the top 10 from Monaco here. Yeah, Checo in first, Sainz finishes second, Verstappen gets 15 points for third, Leclerc 12 points for fourth, Russell another fifth place finish. Let's just quickly stop there on Russell for a second. Literally a non-factor in this race. Finished fifth.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even think they mentioned him essentially one time, unless they were talking about Lewis battling for seventh and the pace compared to Russell. Like, George Russell had the quietest fifth place I've seen in the 2 years that I've been watching.
It's weird because I find that especially those guys, not all the time, but they gear their commentary towards some of the English drivers, right? So, yeah. And to have like Russell and Norris right there, but they were so. It was a Sunday drive for them, essentially. There wasn't
no pressure from the back, no chance in front. Like
and Alonso just just held everyone up by 40 seconds. So
let's continue with the standings here, because you've got Russell and Lando, and then you've got Alonso, who ended up they're 46 seconds back of the leaders, and then Lewis, Bottas, and Vettel. And Lewis Hamilton with Alonso there. I mean, there was a couple of times I thought he was going to try to make a push, but he just couldn't get by. And it was unbelievable how much the top six pulled away from Alonso, man. That was insane. I wanted to see Hamilton get by him to see if Hamilton could try to make a push, because it looked like he was moving okay.
Well, I was hoping for a little bit more. It's just he couldn't get past him, man. That was a great battle to watch. But the thing that hurt them, I think, was the fact that Alonso held him up and Esteban Ocon got the 5-second penalty, right? Yeah. So he couldn't catch up to the pack and hopefully just sandwich them all in. Kind of a tough weekend for Alpine there, because if Alonso doesn't do that, they could quite possibly have two guys in the points if that's in that scenario, right? So a little bit unfortunate there, but man, I don't know how these guys are going to pass each other on that track. It's more so if just someone's got to make a mistake, like a pretty major mistake, or just get out there on worn tires or something like that to make anything happen.
I mean, I know it's just a video game, but on the video game, the best place that I found to pass was like with late braking before you headed down towards that really tight turn and then back around before the tunnel. And Pierre Gasly did that today. Pierre Gasly early in that race, he got onto the other tires and, he made some moves. For the first whatever it was, we watched Gasly for like 4 or 5 laps, and it was really entertaining because he was working his way through the field. I thought he kind of showed some places where he could get done, but he had the advantage of those tires that he threw on. So, I mean, if everybody's running with most part the same gear, it's going to be really tough to get that done.
He's always my sleeper pick for my fantasy team, because, and even after the race, I was just watching some of the F1 post-race show. They were talking about Gasly quite a bit he could have actually been the driver of the day today, just for what he was able to do. And you saw what he could do on those intermediate tires, right? So he was flying through everybody. So there's obviously a ton of skill there. The AlphaTauri car, though, it's kind of a little bit inconsistent, I think. So a little bit different there. But yeah, Gasly, man, that was impressive what he was able to accomplish early on in the race.
Yeah, he ended up finished 11th, just outside of the points. I want to get to a couple of bigger picture items before we move on. I know you got the board there. Anything from the board that we haven't hit on yet? There must be a couple things.
Well, we've kind of talked about a lot of this stuff already, but I was shocked when the red flag came out and everyone did go to the hards, right? Like that was intriguing to me. I think only there was one driver that went to a Williams driver went on the mediums, but yeah, it was weird to see the hards come out at that point. To me, I thought they would look for a lot more grip and go from there. But
let's talk strategy then for just 1 second, because like Leclerc, should they have brought him in sooner, or should they have just waited, because he was in cruise control at that point? He could have milked for a little bit longer, I would have thought, and then they brought him in a little bit later. What would you have done there?
I would have let him go, because they stacked Max and Checo at that point,
they did.
Right? So kind of puts them a little bit behind there. And Leclerc was flying on those tires. He was putting in great time. So it cost him the race. It did. It cost him the race. He was completely done. You could hear it in his voice on the radio after that. I'm going to go back and watch that and see what actually happened.
Oh, I can't wait to see that too. I'm going to go back and look at that cam too. That'll be something else. I felt bad for him. I felt bad for that guy. Now you look at the last couple of races in a row here, what happened last time, and then obviously this time around a little bit frustrating for him too.
Going on just strategy too, Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes, they're asking him the questions on what to do, and I feel like he doesn't want to take any chances. Like, I think when you're in the middle of the pack there, like in the 5, 6, 7 position, it allows you to take some risks, and there was an opportunity for him to come in and I think put on the intermediates at one point. He would have dropped some spots, but man, I feel like Lewis just doesn't have that. He plays it safe a lot. I'd like to see Lewis Hamilton take a few more risks with the strategy of the race, instead of, it seems like he just gets stuck out there and something bad happens, and then he's got to pit late and it just doesn't work out. So yeah, the Red Bull's just doing a masterful job so far over the last 3 races, that their strategy and what they're doing with their drivers makes way more sense than everyone else.
Before we take a look at the standings and maybe some storylines moving forward and maybe the future at Monaco, we got to talk about the Canadian boys. Latifi and Stroll. Like, they're getting out there on the formation lap, and I'm texting you, and that's Latifi. Kind of goes in, they have to come up, push him back, and I'm texting you, I'm like, damn Latifi. And then right away, they're like, and here's Stroll running into the wall. It's just like, and then they almost hit each other in the bloody pits. And I'm just looking at them like, we got 2 Canadian drivers on the circuit, and I'm not going to lie, man. Like, they might be the 2 most embarrassing dudes out there. Like, that's frustrating for me. Like, come on.
It was perfect. I don't know. It was perfect timing, Dusty, because Latifi goes into the wall on the formation, and I'm like, you gotta be joking. And then I get the text from you says, and I look down, it's Latifi. And I'm like, I felt embarrassed. I did. I felt embarrassed. And then you heard him. I goes, I don't know what happened. I know what happened. You drove into the wall. You
suck.
And then Lance just, oh God. I texted. I sent out a tweet to Jacques Villeneuve to see what he's doing, because Canadians need to represent. I don't know. I won't fit in a car. Like, I can't do that anymore. Yeah. But yeah, we need some fresh blood, I think, behind the wheel in some F1 cars, because Canadians have been quite successful in the past. There's been some great
F1 not right
racers.
Now.
So, yeah, but it's.
I think they ended up finishing 14th and 15th, but come on.
Yeah, Stroll 14th, Latifi 15th, but
it's kind of a miracle, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, they're so far. They're a minute behind the leader. It's just it's enough's enough. Enough's enough with that thing. Because what was it? Vettel finished 10th, right? Like, it's. I mean, he's a great driver, but that's the same car. So
yeah, I don't know. I guess their dads just need to pump in more money next year and keep them around for a little bit longer.
They'll have to.
Oh, they're gonna have to. Yeah. I feel like they were writing a check today, being like, okay, here you go. Here's $300 million. Let my kid continue to drive. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at the standings, because you mentioned a little bit earlier on, and I wanted to kind of save it for this point. We got Verstappen at the top with 125 points. Charles Leclerc at 116. Then there's Checo right there at 110. He's closer to Leclerc than Leclerc is to Verstappen. Then you got George Russell, steady Eddie. He's got 84 points. Carlos Sainz has 85. Lewis is in 6th. So you've got 2 Red Bulls, you got 2 Ferraris, you got 2 Mercedes in the top 6 spots. Then you've got Lando at 48 points, Bottas at 40, Esteban Ocon, who's been pretty steady, didn't get anything today. He's got 30 points, and then Kevin Magnussen with 15 points. By the way, how about the accident for Schumacher? My goodness.
He's that was scary because I didn't see the whole back just ripped apart, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh, not again. But it's amazing. He keeps walking away, right? But hopefully he's okay. And the like I listened to a couple guys' helmet cams at that point because they said it on the broadcast too. Like as they were driving by, they were like, "Is he okay? Is he?" Because the crash looked actually a lot worse than what
they didn't cut to they didn't cut to the crash until you saw the back end of the car hanging off.
Yeah,
and I thought, holy shit, what happened? Like,
yeah, for sure. But yeah, like you said, like 125 for Verstappen, Leclerc 116, Sergio 110, Russell 84. Just like he's in the mix, man. Like this is going to be great. Just these driver standings. It's nice to see them kind of bunch up a little bit. So hopefully, Lewis can get his stuff together and maybe even a little bit of McLaren magic to close the gap even further. Because I think that was the most exciting part of last year, Dusty, is we had 2 guys. But can you imagine, 3, 4, like I think we legitimately have 4 guys right now that can challenge for the Drivers' Championship by the end of the year. And if it comes down to that last race and positioning, that would be fantastic.
What needs to happen for Red Bull to just let Max and Checo go at it, as opposed to, like, let's say Perez wins one of the next 2 races and Max finishes 3 or 4 and they're 1-2 and they're separated by 6 points. Gager, at that point, will they just be like, okay, go get her, boys? Or will they still be like, we got to guide Max to this title? Because, it's clear that they want him to have the success, but here's Checo grinding it out, and he's almost in just as good spot.
I think it depends, Dusty, on what that point spread will be. If it gets down to it, and like you say, Checo has a 4-point lead on Max, I think I could see Christian
then what happens?
Give up the position, right? But if there's 12 points, and depending on where Ferrari, a lot of it depends on Ferrari. How late in the season. But I really think Checo's driving is phenomenal right now. And I really think he did put his car on the wall there, Dusty. I won't lie. I think he did. Because go back and watch the qualifying and listen to the engine. It's like he did something weird happened there. So I think it was just a big, you know what, you guys, I should have won that last race. Worked out for him great this year. I hope, I can pray to see Red Bulls battling it out together and stuff in a few more races. But yeah, we'll see. This is good.
So far this year, didn't finish in the first race. Finished 4th, 2nd, 4th, 2nd, 1st. So in the last 5 races, he finished 2nd or 1st in 4 of the 5. So you're right. He's been driving phenomenally, and there's no way he put that car into the wall by accident. let's just leave it at that. Hey, you mentioned McLaren magic. If it's coming, it's probably coming from Lando. What'd you make of Zach Brown this week saying that Danny Ricciardo hasn't lived up to expectations? And then I think he pointed out somewhere along the way, because I mentioned it, maybe it was during qualifying or maybe it was pre-race today, when they said, there might be an out for them to get out of his contract for next year, Gager. So how do you think this plays out? What do you think happens?
I think they're going to get rid of him.
Yeah.
He hasn't been. He shows a flash once a year, and he'll win a race, right? And I think that keeps them going with him and for a while. But I really think it comes down to, what have you done for me lately? And I forget the guy's name. I was looking. There's a young McLaren driver that might be coming up for that seat. And,
okay.
And yeah, when Zach Brown was saying there's certain things in the contract that stipulate his seat might not be safe for next year. So, or maybe even getting rid of him by this year. I don't know. But he just, everyone, the thing that's puzzling to me is everyone talks about how great a great driver he is all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, then they're just going, what's been going on? What's happening here? So I don't know. He can't, as an old goalie, Dusty, you gotta put that stuff on the back burner. You can't be thinking about that, especially going 300 kilometers an hour in an F1 car, right? He's gotta take care of himself.
You gotta be focused.
Do you think
if they cut him, do you think he just retires, or do you think he goes to like an Alpine or an Alfa Romeo or something?
He's in his early 30s, right? And
yeah,
I would, and he just came out with his shoey wine and decanter and stuff like that. He's got a lot of stuff going on down under. I would lean more towards retirement, I think, unless
he's 32. Yeah, he's 32.
So unless someone just throws another bunch of money at him for just a year to go drive for Haas or something like that. But I mean, if I'm Haas, Schumacher's caught. The only reason that Haas isn't bringing any upgrades is Schumacher's wasting all their money on crashes. So who knows?
All right, let's wrap up with this. They said it during the delay about the future of Monaco, and not the most exciting race, and the contract hasn't been signed to extend it. And look, we know with the way that F1's blown up around the world, Gager, they can find places to put races, and they've talked about wanting to expand the schedule anyway. Do you think they actually take Monaco off the schedule? I think you just kind of accepted that it's a massive, massive event and it's beautiful to look at and it's unique. Yeah, it might not be thrilling, but you got 20 other races that can be exciting for you. Like, I feel like they'd be silly to take it off the schedule.
Yeah, it would be like not being able to go to Fenway Park during the season, or is something like, it's too iconic a race, I think, to blow it off the schedule. Is it a boring race? It wasn't today, but there was a lot of factors that went into it with the rain and the strategy. And I mean, and maybe that does play a little bit with the undercutting, and there's always there could be problems with the pit stops there. And I mean, you're unfortunately watching this thing, you're almost waiting for someone to put it in the wall and change things up a little bit differently. But I mean, from what I watched today, no one could pass anyone, right, Dusty? It was almost impossible to pass. So it's not a great race, I think, to watch. Today was great. I thought it was really entertaining. Got my blood going after after the red flag and those four cars battling it out to the end. But and maybe we would have saw something if it was a full 74 lap race, I believe was what
77, I think, is what they were gunning
77,
for.
77, yeah. So it would have been a lot. There would have been something else there for sure, just with the tires falling apart. But no, they keep it in. They got to keep this in. Yeah. Like it's too cool.
They have to keep it in because I just figured out today where Monaco is. Like, I've always heard Monaco, Monaco, Monaco. Today I'm watching the race. Actually, it was during the postponed, like the delay. I'm like, where the hell is Monaco? So then I searched it up. I was like, I zoomed right in on Google Maps, and that's where it started. And I zoomed out, and it was kind of exciting. I was like, where's it going to be? Where is it going to be? And then I saw it's just across from Italy, right next to France. And then I Googled, what country is Monaco in? And then it's like, it's its own thing. I was like, oh, all right, cool. So, I'm learning so much about the world watching Formula One, man. They can't just take it out now. There's no chance.
No. I mean, I went and watched Iron Man 2 just to watch the Tony Stark go for it, right?
Yeah. Can you imagine watching that race on TV today and that goes down with Tony Stark? That would be absolutely amazing. Let alone the fact that he just went down and hopped in a race car and was in the race somehow, which made no sense. Nobody ever talks about how ridiculous that is. But, I mean, I guess if Stroll and Latifi can pay their way in, he can as well. So there's...
I think if you can operate the Iron Man suit, you should be able to handle an F1 car.
That's a good point. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of the Pit Stop Pals, episode 8. If you've been watching on the YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe to the podcast as well. All your podcasting platforms, just search the Pit Stop Pals, and you can find it so you never miss an episode. Gager, enjoy the rest of your day, man.
All right, buddy. Take care.